Leaving to Know More. What is that about? Who comes up with these talk titles? Where to begin? So, this came to me when I was thinking about my dad coming to town. He's very much into organization. His garage was one of those where the tools all had, like, you take the tool off and there was an outline of where it was supposed to go. No, psychologist, but he's got an engineer's brain. And an artistic brain too. He's got like a balance. He's got both sides equal or something. But then I was thinking, can I lock my garage so he can't see it when he's here? And that's when I realized I have way too much stuff. I need to let some go so I can have more. I need to let some of it leave so I can have some more. And I started thinking about this whole idea of stuff. Our stuff is like a recession-proof business. Do you know they call it storage? They think storage is a recession-proof business. It grows at 5.1% every year, and it has since it's ever started. We got too much stuff. Way too much stuff. I hit Google because I wanted to get some little research on this, and I just put in the word storage. 24.5 million results came up on storage. 24.5 million results in 0.9 seconds. Google is fast. And it told me that there are 58,000 storage units worldwide. 47,000 of them are in the United States. We have enough stuff in storage to fill 3 Manhattan Islands. 3 of them. Yeah. We need to do something about that. We need to let go. Holding on is something that we love to do. I've loved to do it since I was a kid. I was at my mom's house going through some of her artwork and trying to think of what we could take over to the skilled nursing facility where she's staying, just to spruce up the room. And there was a painting that she had done of a story that I had heard about since I was like that big. Apparently, I had a teddy bear that I was very attracted to. I liked to hold on to it. This teddy bear was gross because I carried it everywhere. It went everywhere with me. And my mom says, okay, we got to wash this dang teddy bear. How can we get it from him? He will never let it go. So they waited till I was asleep. And they snatched it from me, and they washed it, and they hung it on the line. And apparently I woke up in search of it, found it, dragged a stool over, stood up on the stool, got up on the line, and there was a picture of me holding on to the teddy bear. That's when I knew. I've been into holding on since I was like that big, right? But we hold on to so much stuff. We hold on to old habits and outmoded beliefs and stale ideas, and we just don't want to let them go. And that holding on is one of the ways that we can allow ourselves to kind of feel old, you know? Oh yeah, I haven't had that since that the story of the stuff we hold on lets us talk like old people. Back in the 1932, you were wearing a red dress. That's that stuff, that lasting, and the lasting is something I want us to think about letting go of. Because as we can let go of things and we can leave things behind, we can move into more. And so lasting sort of whispers at you. It whispers, stop. You need this. You can't let that go. But leaving asks you questions. Leaving asks you, well, what are we going to do next? Or where are we going? Or what's around the next horizon? So when we leave something, we're in anticipation of something more. But we're holding on. We're stuck where we are. And I just want to encourage us to be in the journey of going to where we want to go, to experience that universal constant, which is what? Change. Change is the universal constant. And it's always happening. And it's been happening since the very beginning. In the Genesis story, it's been translated in so many different languages, but when you go back to the Aramaic and really study it from its roots and from the culture of the time and look at what the story was saying, it starts off with in the beginning. But a true translation of that first phrase is really is in a beginning. In a beginning. And then it goes into God created. But a deeper translation, a more scholarly translation of that part of it is really when God began to create. So in a beginning, not the beginning, in a beginning when God began to create. And God continues to create, you see. That's what Wayne Muller in his lovely book called The Sabbath, he says, creation is an ongoing story of new beginnings. Opportunities to begin again and again and again. God began to create and is still creating, and nothing is finished. Now, if nothing is finished, why are we bother holding on to so much stuff? Let's let some stuff go so more creation can take place. Let's move into the thing that's unfinished. And what's unfinished? Us, because we are eternal, immortal beings that are constantly evolving upward, according to Dr. Holmes, moving to higher realms of expression all the time. How do we get to those higher realms of expression if we're so busy holding on to the stuff that's been behind us? And after all, things arise and they fade away. Look at the seasons and how they change and keep moving and moving and moving and moving. I mean, smell the spring air right now. The orange blossoms and the jasmine, right? And the gardenias. Everything is in bloom right now. It smells so great. But what's going to happen? Those petals are going to fall. And then what's going to happen? That plant's going to go through and it's going to rise up again. It's never finished, you see? So to enjoy the experience of life, to enjoy all that we have available to us, requires us to sometimes let some stuff go and move on into the next phase. How do we go about doing that? How do we answer this call to more? Well, in today's world, apparently 2.4 million research sites are telling us that not many people are taking that call to move into more. That we're storing a lot of stuff, that we're holding on to all kinds of things. But you see, what we really need to understand is all the stuff that has come to us is really just bringing us information anyway. And information is cool. Information brings us news, tells us what's happening. But the valuable thing is what happens next, is what we do with information. And we use our intelligence to use the information, and in using the intelligence, that brings us into insights. Insights. News is good, new stuff is good, the information is great, but then we take it and we use it, and we use it to bring us new levels of insight and understanding, you see. There's a story that I read the other day, and it's about a climber, and he's got his goal is to climb this mountain peak. He just wants to get to the top of this mountain peak. And he's been traveling for a long time. And he's got a lot of baggage with him. He's got a lot of luggage. He's got all of his gear that he's traveling along, and he's dragging his stuff along, you know. And he can see the peak. It's not that far. It's the clouds have parted, and there it is up just above him. And it's like obtainable, you know. But he's been going along, and he's not that spring anymore. He's a little bit into his later years. Maybe he just turned 60. I don't know. But he's moving along, and he's moving along, and finally he's so tired. He goes, you know, let me just set this stuff down right here. And he sets it down, and he's sitting back up against a tree, and he hears the birds. You know, sometimes we hear the bird during meditation. Here's the bird doing its bird song, and he's smelling the spring air, and he gets a little rejuvenation in his step, and he goes on, and he gets up, finally gets up to the mountain peak. He's reached his goal. And he looks around, and it looks pretty good. All right, I'm satisfied. He looks back down at his stuff, and he heads back down to where his stuff is, and he's still being called by the peak and what he saw near the side of the peak. But he looks down at his stuff, and he says, okay, well, I guess I should gather all this up and get on the road again. And he looks at this one box. He says, well, what's in this box? He opens up the box, and it's like awards, and it's got some medals in it, and an old flannel blanket from his childhood, and a teddy bear. And he goes through all of that, and he goes, you know, nice memories, but I don't need this. So he pushed it aside, and And he goes to another box, and it's full of just old papers and records, and I don't need that. And he puts that aside, and then he goes into a backpack that he's got, and he goes rumbling through the backpack, and along his journey, he's picked up all these great things. Part of his journey was along a lake, and he picked up these beautiful rocks that were so beautiful along the lake, and he says, well, I got the memory of those. I don't need those. And then he's got a stick that he picked up. Why? He doesn't know anymore. So he puts that off to the side, and he sees a wooden flute that he made. He pulls that out. He puts it to the side, and then he sees this wonderful little knapsack, and he takes that out, and he says, oh, that's kind of cool. And he puts a couple of tools in the knapsack, and he decides, that's it. That's all I need. He takes the rest, and he stashes it over on the side of the mountain. I think that was the first public storage place. And then he heads back up to the hill with his little knapsack over his shoulder, and he gets to the top, and he looks out at the peak, and he looks back down at his stuff, and he sees the valley ahead of him. And he takes out his flute, and he starts to play the flute, and he walks down into the valley of his future. He's left behind so he could experience more. He didn't need all that stuff. He's standing taller now and more free. And that's what we're called to do when we can let go of our stuff. Yes, some of it we want to take with us. We might want to take the flute and maybe a tool or two and a saw or something, because we may need to build something on the other side. Take our skills and our talents with us, but then continue to go on and know that we don't need to take all that stuff with us everywhere that we go. You see, Ernest Holmes says that the greatest adventure in life will be an experiment with ourselves to see what we could do with this thing inside of us. If we're on an adventure and the experiment is ourselves, what else do we need? Some of the stuff we carry along, we don't need. Some of the ideas that we've been using that have been holding us together have been moved on. They're outdated. We need to update on a regular basis. Take an assessment, use the information, use our intelligence to receive new insights to move into this great experiment we have with life. Because there is something within us that's calling us, and there's this change agent within us that is God itself, that is always creating new, where's John? Beginnings, always creating. Ending something and beginning something new. And it happens by means of each and every one of us. That is our journey in life, to let go, to go to our peak experience and accept it as, oh, right, this is awesome. The view from here is wonderful. The view back there was cool, but I want to go down into that next verdant valley and see what's in store for me there. What is along that next babbling brook and creek? Let's travel that route. And that's the joy of life, and that's what's going to keep us young and keep us in this thing called life until whatever comes next. And who knows? Who knows what's next? But I do know what's here. And what's here now is life itself, to be lived as fully as we possibly can. We don't, we spend so much time in a lot of faith systems talking about the afterlife. Okay, maybe, who knows? We'll find out when we get there. But in the meantime, here we are. Party on, dude. Let's party this to the highest that we can. Let's use this thing in us, this thing that is life itself. And who understands this life? It's like, I don't know. What makes us get up in the morning every day? What makes us come here? What makes us go doing any of the things that we do? To talk to our neighbors, to fall in love, to get on the phone, to care about somebody, to give a listening ear. What is it that calls us to reach down and help another person? I think it's life. I think it's this energy within us, this call, this adventure, this thing within ourselves. Let's experiment with it as fully as we can. And one of the ways to experiment with it is to leave some stuff behind. And to know that as we move into more, there is more evidence and there's more stuff available. If somebody is standing in the sunlight, all you need to do is step over here and you're standing in it too. It's not limited because somebody's standing in the way. You can get there. There's plenty more too. If you're looking at a beautiful sunset, and you turn to your friend and say, look at that beautiful sunset. You know what? They get to see it too. There's so much of this out there. When you're looking out at the stars, billions and billions, there's lots of stars. Plenty for everybody. And there's plenty of life, and there's plenty of joy, and there's plenty of newness, and there's plenty of new experiences waiting for each and every one of us. So we don't limit anything by experimenting and having the joy of all this. Your good deprives no one of their own good. So go for it. Go for it, and know that we're not asking you to take something from somebody else. We're just asking you to take what's yours and live it to the fullest and just stretch it out there that much further. Ernest Holmes says that within you now, know that within you now dwells the eternal God, For all the presence, all the power, and all the God there is with you and in you now. Just sit with that one for a minute. Think about that. Think about how much strength and power and availability you have to your good, because there is this eternal presence within you, this powerful goodness within you, this thing called God within you, this thing that created. I began to create, and I continue to create again and again and again. That's talking about you and you and you. You begin to create again and again each and every day that you wake up. What are you doing with your canvas that day? What are you going to do with your canvas? It's not a block of metal where you stamp it with yesterday's news. It's a canvas. It's fresh that you get to paint with whatever you decide to put on it that particular day. There's a joy. There's a joy in knowing that as you open your mind to new things and new ideas, that there's a wisdom that comes with this newness and an understanding that comes with this newness that allows you to set sail for new adventures, to climb your mountains, to travel into new valleys and new vistas. But we come with this when we can really embody this understanding, to really live with it. See, he doesn't say hope that within you. He says know it, and also notice it. Notice it when you think of a fresh idea. Where did that come from? I never thought of that before. That's insight, that's wisdom, that's inspiration, that's the divine, that's this eternal God knowing presence within you that's empowering you to do something great and fantastic with your life. And when we can know it with that deep sense of conviction and with that deep sense of trust, we can be like the little girl who was praying when her grandfather walked past her room one morning. Or one evening, he walked past the room and she was down on her knees, and he could tell she was praying, but he was confused because she was just going A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. And she goes, honey, what are you doing? I'm praying. I hear you, but I don't understand. Well, I'm not exactly sure what I'm praying for, but I figured if I just gave God all the letters, he could figure it out for me. See, now is that trust and faith? Is that knowing that there's a power within you that can create your good for you if you were open to it? And that's what I'm talking about. And that kind of opening is created when we leave enough stuff behind that there's a space for the universe to fill in the good for us. That's what this journey is all about. Dr. Holmes says, we should bring to bear on each new event the influence of the creative nature of our thought. And that influence is founded on an inward calm, a sense of certainty and peace, which will reflect itself in the changing scene of our everyday lives. See, there's new events coming all the time, right? And we put an influence on that with the way we think, the way we act, the way we move through life itself. And that influence that we put, that creative nature of our thought that we put our influence on, is strengthened by an inner calm. It's strengthened by the certainty of that little girl who can pray and just give God the alphabets and not even worry about it. It's strengthened by this peace that allowed that gentleman to leave all of his stuff at the original public storage locker spot and cross over into that valley and see what is ahead for him. And in that expectancy of good, we begin to reflect the changing scene of our everyday lives. We begin to reflect something wonderful and joyous in our adventure. So I invite you, if you want to know more, leave more behind and step into your good. And so it is. And now we come back to our affirmation. Get it? Here we go. As I stop holding on and start letting go, I open the door for more good to flow. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Some of you haven't seen this yet, have you? This nice, sir? This is one of the birthday gifts. Well, this was actually a gift from the minister that rented space at Founders Church, and he gave it to me when I had my own Saturday service. And this was a gift from my beloved. Yes. No, not the box. This table to go along with it. It's absolutely marvelous. And, it calls me back to last week again. The other thing that happened last week, we had a lot of visitors. Here. And like nearly every single one of them said, man, that place is so full of love. It's so welcoming here. I feel like I'd come home. We are great hosts, CSL Simi Valley. Right? We made people feel wonderful. And I think part of it is because we're so well prayed up. And so if you have, really, I do. How about that segue, right? And I think that part of that is how we really emphasize the power and the strength of prayer. And I'd like to use this time now as we go into our healing prayer to bring that power in a unified collective voice. So if there are people in your life or an experience in your own life that you would like to have prayer for, bring that person's name or the condition right into the room at this time. Like I would say, Patricia, full health and wholeness. Let's hear it. Feeling that collective wave of inspiration and intention, I now speak this word on behalf of each and every one of us, knowing that there is a loving presence called God. There is a loving principle that operates as God in this thing called life, and it is moving as an idea in mind, becoming a reality in time and space. And so for each and every person we have spoken of right now, we know that there is an intention behind what we said, and there is a movement in this thing called mind that operates as an activity in their lives. An activity that brings good, that brings wholeness, that brings right action and perfect peace, that brings harmony and joy in the relationship, that takes folks from a condition that is not favorable for their current involvement and evolvement of life and brings them into a set of circumstances that benefits their future upliftment in life. We know that that operates as the right and perfect job, the perfect living experience, the right healthful experience, the right relationship experience, the right financial experience. So in this time, we just open ourselves up to receive the good of the divine in our lives and in the lives of each and every person that we hold in our consciousness and that we hold dear in our hearts, knowing that the universe says yes to our intentions, that it never says no, and that anything that looks like no is simply a standby. Here it comes, it's on its way, for everything unfolds in time and space. Though right now we recognize it as happening this moment in the mind of God, and we know that with full expectancy that it becomes an experience in our lives. This is the operation of spirit. This is the movement of prayer. This is the word spoken, and with a deep sense of gratitude, I now release this word into that perfect law by saying, and so it is.